Hello, everyone, and welcome to MeowMix, the Carolina Panthers podcast. My name is Steven.
My name is Jerry.
And with us today to break down Patrick Surtain, Jason Hewitt from Sports Illustrated, covering the Carolina Panthers. You can follow Jason on Twitter at Jason Hewitt50. Also follow the Carolina Panthers SI Twitter handle. What's that one?
Got you. It's so our Twitter is at SI_Panthers.
There you go. Thanks for joining us for this, Jason. We appreciate it, man.
Hey, it's always good to be on. Y'all are the homies, most definitely.
And everybody out there, check out the full podcast on Apple Podcasts or iHeartRadio or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. We have an interesting conversation with Jason about a potential Teddy Bridgewater burner account that interacted with Jason this past week. And we also talked some Deshaun Watson, things like that. So check that out. But here we are talking about Patrick Surtain, cornerback out of Alabama. Jerry, let's learn a little bit about this guy.
Patrick Surtain Jr., son of former Pro Bowl cornerback Patrick Surtain Sr., who played for the Dolphins and Chiefs and was selected to the Pro Bowl a few times. Patrick Surtain Jr. was the number one corner prospect coming out of high school. After multiple offers, Surtain committed to Alabama. There, he quickly made his presence felt by starting as a true freshman. He continued starting for the Crimson Tide in his sophomore and junior season, including winning the SEC Defensive Player of the Year for 2020 and winning a national title.
Yeah,
overall, just
pretty
impressive.
Awesome.
Most definitely. Ooh,
And this is Jason. This is the guy that Jason wanted to talk about with us after we talked to him about Trey Lance. He said, guys, whenever you talk about Patrick Surtain, I must come on.
I had to. Let's get into it, man.
Let's get into it. 6'2", 202 pounds, right? Coming out as a junior. In 2020, he had 32 total tackles, 14 assists, only one interception, one touchdown as well. Fumble recovery. Now, you might look at his stats and say, well, one interception 2020, only two interceptions 2019, one interception is 2018. Had some forced fumbles in those other years. This is a lockdown corner. He's shutting down one side of the field. So those guys don't often get a ton of interceptions because they're not getting thrown at a lot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's an island over there.
Yeah, you're exactly right. That's why he doesn't have many tackles. He doesn't have many pass deflections or interceptions, because when you're that good, they're going to avoid you, especially in college. Most quarterbacks there know that, you throw it over there at your own peril.
Yeah. And by the way, this is the SEC, guys. So he's playing legit wide receivers with legit quarterbacks every week.
Exactly. And also, you got to think about who he has to cover in practice. He has to deal with Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith on a daily basis. And he probably wins a lot of those battles too. Come on, man. Oh, man. I love watching this dude play. He has the perfect length. He's 6'2". He can play on the boundary. He can defend the short side of the field. Listen, man. He's going to be a problem in this league. I know that, corners, it's kind of hard to tell, but I can just look at this man and see that, when he's in man, it's a wrap. It's over. You're not throwing the ball up unless it's I guess one of the premier receivers, maybe a Devontae Adams or even maybe DK Metcalf. But even then, man, Patrick Surtain is that man.
Yeah. And he's got the size to match up well. I mean, he's not 6'5" like some of these receivers, but he's 6'2", so he's not 5'11" like a lot of the Panthers corners are right now. He's got some size to him. He's fast. And corners, usually those top end corners that come into the draft, they almost always work out. If they're not all pros, they're usually in the higher end of the league at that position. So it's not a huge risk to take somebody like Patrick Surtain in the top 10.
You're absolutely right. And the Panthers need somebody like that. And this guy overall is just a fantastic player. He can play the ball in the air. He's a great tackler, good in run support, good hands. You said it, match up with big receivers. One thing that I read over and over again when I was doing the research on him, he's so smart that he can diagnose a play and know when to hand off a receiver to his safety, when to make certain plays. That was the best thing I kept reading over and over about him.
Absolutely. And I feel like, assuming that they keep him, he would be the perfect guy to play with Dante Jackson, because Dante Jackson, he depends on his athleticism a lot more, So it would be a nice switch up to have someone who's more technically sound to be on the other side of the field.
Yeah, agreed. And we actually saw some growth from Dante Jackson when he played this season. He unfortunately was injured a lot in the season. But that was something that Jerry and I talked about coming into the season with Dante Jackson was, is he going to stop just relying on how fast he is, right?
Yeah.
And look at tape and prepare, more for games maybe, and not just try to jump the ball every time it gets close to him. And we saw that. I think we saw that. So you pair somebody like Patrick Surtain with an improved Dante Jackson, that all of a sudden that secondary doesn't look too bad.
Not at all. And hey, man, we talked about Brian Burns and how elite he is as a pass rusher. You know what Surtain is going to do to his game? Man, listen.
You have Corn Elder that you could put in the slot, who was one of the top slot corners in the league last year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah, and it sounds like, with Trey Boston leaving, you're potentially looking at moving Jeremy Chin more in the safety position. Maybe you move Burris to that free safety and you put Chin there. I don't know. We'll see how it all works out, but there you got some players. This could be a different looking defense, assuming that we keep, Brian Burns, we keep Derek Brown, we don't give them up, for a Deshaun Watson in some mega trade. Then things could look different on that defense this year. Jerry, I'm just kind of looking at our notes here. We've got a couple of cons.
We always have to have a con. No one's perfect.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Jason, tell me if you agree with these. May struggle playing the slot. He's more of an outside corner.
I agree.
And struggles to keep up on deep routes. Is he not? Maybe he's not super fast.
Yeah, he's not super fast and not twitchy, is what I kind of read.
Okay. Yeah, he's not like a freak athlete, but he's so technically sound that I feel like it makes up for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've seen guys that are extremely fast just not be able to play very well. And, if you look at some of the best corners in the history of the league, they're not, track stars. So a lot of them anyway.
Yeah.
No,
I'm sure he's fast enough.
Yeah, no. And my impression is being that smart, being able to play man, overall, he's a great cornerback that's going to come into this league.
Plus, if you got these receivers that are relying on their speed, then just put Dante Jackson on, because they're probably not the best receiver on that team anyway. Usually the best receivers on these teams are the guys that are running crisp routes and they're, just great hands. They're not always the burner. Oftentimes they're not the burner. You got the burner on the other side who's just running straight down the field. Hey, just put Dante Jackson on them and put Patrick Surtain on the other side. Yeah. So, all right, let's talk about this. We'll go with our standard questions here that we ask on every player we talk about. Does this player fit the current roster? Of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Him, Dante Jackson, and Corn Elder. That cornerback group would be pretty solid. Needs some more depth, but overall.
This is something the Panthers have not had in a long time.
Ever.
Well, Bradbury was good and he got better as the years went on, and then they got rid of him.
Yeah.
So
Josh Norman and Peanut Tillman were probably the best 1-2 that I can think of.
Yeah.
Recent memory. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Does Patrick Surtain come in and Jason, are we thinking that he starts right away and that he is, as good or better than Dante Jackson right off the bat in the NFL?
Oh, that is a great question. I
That's
feel
great.
like, oh, maybe you never really know with rookies,
Yeah.
especially when you compare them to guys who've been in the league. Like Dante Jackson's still young, but he does have league experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like Surtain, he might coming in early, but I definitely see the Panthers starting him if they draft him immediately.
Yeah. I think so
Absolutely.
too, especially with, who else is going to be over there? They haven't re-signed Russell Douglas yet. So who knows? Will this player fall to the Panthers at 8?
I think so.
I think so too. I
Yeah.
think it's possible that he goes early. Him and Caleb, was it Fairley,
Mhm.
are the two top corners that seem to be, being mocked in the top 12 to 15 picks. So I think either one of them could go before the other, but I think there's probably like an 80% chance that he falls to 8, I would think.
Yeah, I do too. I think he does. Most mocks I see him falling past 8. So
Yeah. Would you be excited if the Panthers drafted this player?
yeah,
I would, depending on the circumstances.
Yeah.
If the top 3 quarterbacks are off the board, then I would be happy with Surtain.
By top 3, are you including Trevor Lawrence in that, or you're saying the other 3?
Ooh, okay. I will tell y'all because on the last show that I was on, I wasn't a huge fan of Trey Lance,
Yeah.
but I watched some more film and listen, throwing only 1 interception, that's pretty impressive, man.
Yeah.
In your entire college career, mind you, it wasn't that long, but still, man, that's pretty doggone incredible. So yeah, I'll say those top 3, not including Lawrence. So we got Zach
Okay.
Wilson, we got
Yeah.
Fields.
Justin Fields, thank you, and Trey Lance. So if those 3 are off the board, then yeah, Surtain, let's go.
Okay. So now we'll talk about where he falls on the MeowMix big board. And these are just of the guys that we've talked about so far. So Jason, I will read this out to you. These are the guys so far on the big board. Number 1 on the big board for us, Penei Sewell. That will be our number 1 draft pick of the guys we've talked about so far. Number 2, Justin Fields. Number 3, Zach Wilson. Number 4, Micah Parsons. Number 5, Trey Lance. Number 6, Kyle Pitts. So where would Patrick Surtain fit on that list for you guys?
Would you like to go first, Jerry?
No, you're the guest.
Ooh, all right. I would put right after Micah Parsons for me.
Okay. So you got him ahead of Trey Lance on our board, but maybe in your own personal list, he'd go. Would you put him below Trey Lance? Would you put him? He would only be ahead of Kyle Pitts.
Honestly, if Trey Lance is on the board and the Panthers got Surtain, I wouldn't be upset. So personally, I would prefer that they go after Lance, but heart says Lance, brain says Surtain. How about that?
Okay.
I completely understand. This is what I've been trying to tell, what I say almost every episode. If they pass on like Lance and he's out there to get Surtain, my assumption is the organization, the coaches didn't like Lance to pick him. And I'd be happy with that because you have to trust that the coaches are going to know what they want more.
So Jerry, what would you want as?
I would put him right below Trey Lance at number 6, ahead of Kyle Pitts.
Okay. So, and by the way, Jason, Jerry and I disagree on Kyle Pitts. I would have him a little higher on this list.
I would never draft a tight end in the first
tight
round.
end that early,
top 10.
All right, but if you're playing him like a wide receiver, like if he's as good as a wide receiver,
get Devontae Smith or Jamar Chase.
They might not make it to 8. Either way, okay, that's fine. For me, I'm gonna agree with you guys below Trey Lance because I couldn't put him above Michael Parsons.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely couldn't put him above Sewell. And then the other quarterbacks, I agree. So we'll put him at number 6, Patrick Surtain. Not that we wouldn't be happy if the Panthers drafted him. I think outside of Kyle Pitts for maybe you guys, we'd be happy with any of these draft picks.
So far, yeah, honestly.
Jerry, what are the chances that this whole draft profile series that you and I have done means nothing in a couple weeks after the Panthers get rid of their next 5 first-round draft picks?
I mean, it's already in the books. It's on YouTube. It's, it's all on the podcast, but I'd be still ecstatic that we have Deshaun Watson. My wife would kill me for going to buy another jersey.
Let's go.
Would we begin a series of second or third round draft picks instead?
I mean, we could just change the name of this podcast to Deshaun Watson's Love Letters.
Yeah.
That would be fire.
Oh, man. All right. Any other thoughts on Patrick Surtain before we end this thing? No?
Lock down.
All right. Let's do it.
All right. We want to thank everyone for listening. If you like the show, please let your friends know. Please follow us on Twitter at MeowMix Podcast. If you have any questions or comments, you can email us at mailbag@meowmixpodcast.com. If you leave us a 5-star review with a comment on Apple Podcasts, we'll read the comment on the show. Next week, we'll be taking a look at cornerback Caleb Farley. And if you have any other players that the Panthers should look at number 8, just email us at mailbag@meowmixpodcast.com.
Yeah. We're also on Clubhouse at MeowMix Pod and Locker Room at MeowMix Pod. Jerry, you might want to see if you can get Locker Room. I know Clubhouse is iOS only, but Locker Room is, I believe, platform agnostic. And we might do some stuff on there in the future. These are kind of new social networks that are audio only. So it kind of fits in with the podcast theme. So yeah, check us out on there. Might be doing some more stuff on there as we get closer to the season. But until next time, everybody stay safe out there and keep pounding.